Hello, Moon to Moon. I'm very excited to be coming to you with an entirely new series, which is Self-Abandonment through the houses, as in the houses of the birth chart, the houses of astrology, the 12 houses. There's going to be 12 of these. I love a good series. So, the the origin of this series goes to the gnosis that I experienced at the very end of the new moon in Pisces lunar cycle, where I came into the words, the matriarchy is already here. So if you are a regular at Moon to Moon, you know that that episode was 2 episodes ago. You can go back 2 episodes where I introduce what I mean by the matriarchy is already here and tie it to astrology. Then in my last episode, I talk more about the idea of self abandonment. That most of us, everyone that I know, I'll say this, whether personally, professionally, whatever, we were all conditioned to self abandon in order to be obedient and submissive to authorities in charge. And these authorities in charge taught us to see the world through shame. And I've been teaching, most of you know this, most listeners know that I've been teaching on shame and astrology since spring of 2023 when I introduced my project Unshaming the Signs. And thereafter came the infamous guest spot on the astrology podcast, and then my course, Unshaming Your Chart. And I've just been continuing to be obsessed and fascinated with how helpful it is to talk about shame, because shame is powerful because the spell works so that we don't call it what it is. Shame is a powerful spell because we don't identify it as a frame or a lens through which we see the world, but rather as what's fucked up about us. So we internalize shame as the problem of us. And from that worldview, then, we are living inside this prison of our own self-talk, of our own limiting beliefs about the world and about what's possible for us in this world because of this internalized self-dialogue that comes from shame. And so, in order to get relief from feeling bad, we look to outer authorities, we look to external authorities to give us any kind of proof, anything at all. We will take it that we're not bad, that we haven't failed, that there's something good about us. And in this way, we get really addicted to hustling and striving for this external proof that we're not bad people. And we begin to detach from feeling anything or looking at anything that would like bring in the specter of feeling the discomforts of shame. And this in turn makes it very difficult for us to be in compassionate, loving community in our interpersonal relationships and especially in our communities. Within our communities, it makes it really difficult for us to be able to hear each other when the striving to not feel shame is so intense that we are not able to really be in communion and connection with one another. So, yeah. What I'm interested then in this series is to invoke the language of astrology, as I always have, as a language of repair, as a language of recovery, as a language of renewal, as a language of remembering our divinity, in the divinity in everyone. This is how astrology has always felt in the spaces that I hold, where compassion and open-heartedness become a way that we relate to one another, even in our differences and even in our disagreements. Astrology holds us this way. And across this series, I am turning to astrology to help us feel into ways in which the previously unseen thing that is vexing us, that is making it hurt, that is bringing despair, that brings upon shame, that brings upon displeasure, whatever is the don't like thing, I'm inviting astrology in to come and help us see and name the thing for what it is. Because once we can see and name and identify where we may self abandon, as in cede our own authority to shame, the shame that was internalized into us from a larger authority that doesn't love us. Authoritarian cultures are the same culture as shame culture because shame serves authority. Shame serves authority. Okay, so what we're doing in unshaming projects and in identifying where does self-abandonment happen, we're able to put our eyes on something we previously couldn't see. Now we're able to relate to it. And this helps us to do what? It helps us to become free. It helps us to become free. Because to become free is the same thing as becoming someone who doesn't self-abandon. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. And so this project is about turning to the language of astrology to help us understand where liberation is. And I have found it to be true that there's something inherent to the way astrology operates when it is spoken in this way, that the kind of freedom that we begin to feel with the sport of astrology becomes a kind of freedom that we insist be felt by everyone, be had by everyone. And the project is protecting everybody. The matriarchy is already here. So this is what we're doing. This is Emergence Astrology. Welcome. We're going to move through the houses. And yeah, my hope is that this project will be of support to everyone who's learning about astrology. Like maybe you're learning about the houses, or maybe you are an avid student who's been studying astrology for years and you never get tired of talking about the houses. Maybe you are a professional astrologer. Maybe you hold space for a lot of human beings where your chart is between you and another person. And it is of your highest desire to speak astrology as a language of liberation, of freedom, and of disrupting the spells of shame and disrupting patterns of self-abandonment for the person for whom you sit across from. If these are the things that you're interested in, then I would say that you're interested in Emergence Astrology. Welcome to Emergence Astrology. Emergence Astrology is going to be open again for enrollment. It's a 1 to 3 year commitment. The curriculum is being completely revised from scratch in order to accommodate this gnosis of the matriarchy is already here, and in order for the curriculum to now serve what I understand is the larger project of my work and the larger project under which Emergence Astrology has always been serving. We've always been serving this. It just wasn't spoken before. But now that it's spoken, I understand that this curriculum wants to hold the most refined, most consolidated, and most mature of the teachings that I have been delivering since I started my career. And I first started teaching this in 2019 and have been serving this in one iteration or another since then. So this is me announcing that Emergence Astrology Pathway, I'm now calling it, is returning as a 1 to 3 year experience of deep diving into this repair, into this recovery, into this renewal, and into this remembering that is ultimately serving the liberation of yourself and the liberation of all. The matriarchy is already here. All right. So that's the larger thesis of this project, but it will also be supportive for you as a library on the houses at any time that you're listening in the future, even beyond enrollment dates and things like that. Summer solstice is when the doors will open and the doors will close at the end of June, and we'll go for year one. The link to learn about the class is not ready at the time that I'm speaking this, but possibly at the time that you are listening to this, you will see a link in the show notes to take you to the entirely revised course page to reflect all the changes that are now happening over at Emergence Astrology Pathway. Okay, here we go. So, let's dive in. Chart context clues. That's what we're really doing, is like context clues in the chart where things may come up for someone to help them identify where they previously believed that this was their personality, but it actually is patterns of self-abandonment that came from internalized shame police. So when we're looking at a birth chart, what we're looking at is the terrestrial life. It's like, where's Earth in the birth chart? We see the symbols for all the other planets. Where's Earth? I would say that Earth is through the houses. The houses represent the realms of human life that we move through every day in our human experience. Anything that you're ever going through ever in a day, no matter how mundane it is or how internal it is, there's a house for that. The houses point to the terrestrial human experience of being here in bodies, being divine beings with spirits and bodies, surrounded by support. The support of the circle of animals that we call the zodiac, that literally circles us like a swaddle, like a hug. And then the planets that travel through the zodiac that tell us things based on the placement at the time of our birth about the path of our life and what it will feel like for us to be humans in bodies here in our time. It is my personal take that astrology is very flexible to be what it needs to be for humans in their own time. And we humans, recording this in 2026, we need help with particular things. And astrology, to me, is available for that. Astrology is available to help us when we approach it as a flexible curriculum that we've been given since the ancient times, what we can read in books, the techniques that we were given, and also a field of mystery gnosis that we can connect to through our hearts, through heart coherence with the language, in our own practices of devotion, where we're able to hear and feel and see and know how cared for and loved we are. All of that matters. The personal, subjective relationship that you have to astrology matters when it comes to how you relate to astrology. And this is how I teach it with my students. So my approach does not fit. It really does not fit someone who only wants how it was written by people who aren't alive anymore, you know? However, I also, is it a paradox or is it just that we're complex people? I love what's been written since the ancients. I love studying the traditions. I love the lineages. I love the old techniques. And it's all of that. It's so much bigger than us. We can't possibly fathom all that astrology is. It's beyond our comprehension. We can never touch all of it at once. It's too big for anyone to ever take in at one time, including their lifetimes. Maybe when we die, we'll understand what astrology is. But for now, it's here to help us play at being here with more freedom, more compassion, more love, more trust, more between one another. All right. So, as I was saying, the houses represent the terrestrial human experience, and we're going to go one by one. But the thing is that they're all connected. Sometimes houses can't see each other very well. Like that realm of life doesn't really see this other realm of life very clearly. And the more you learn astrology, y'all know that these are interesting things because when we have placements in houses that don't really see each other, it's harder literally for us in our own awareness of ourselves to see ourselves. So astrology is so helpful because you can look at the chart and begin to recognize like, oh, I see how these don't see each other, and I can feel into how it is hard to see these parts of myself all at the same time. How helpful to have a map for that. Um, but really, when we speak about each of the houses one by one, there are relationships between the houses, and there's things going on one side of a chart that are um, affecting how you are relating to yourself within that side of the chart. And so all of these things we're going to have to hold, like we're calling in the power to hold the vastness and the complexity of this. We're calling in trust that we're receiving exactly what we need from this today and right now. We're calling in trust that anything that's not for us from this message will just move out of our way. And we're calling in whatever gaps are meant to be filled in by us will come to us easily through the mouths of other people or through our own insights. Okay, how about that? Yep. So the first house is a really big one because it's the first. But of course, the first house has to do with the first breath, and that's a big deal. It has to do with how we entered life in that moment. We went from being in utero to being out here. There we are. There we are into the world, just as that sign was coming up from the underworld to the above world at that eastern horizon at the moment that we were born. And so this first house is that zone that represents our arrival, our arrival at being here. So, one of the things that I like to talk about with the first house and with shame is how this zone that can tap right at shame in our even being here, shame that we came here at all, right? Whoa, that's a big one. Um, if that's like an original pain, there's a lot of information in the first house that can help us find liberation through that pain and the shame of having arrived at all. Because we did arrive, though, we did arrive. And however that was to our caregivers, to our circumstances, here we are. And the intelligence of being here is the intelligence of our being here. So what are we looking for here? Where do we go from this place? So one of the things that I like to think about with self-abandonment, if we're going to locate self-abandonment in the houses, is that self-abandonment has something to do with leaving yourself. Abandon to meaning to leave. So that would suggest then that there's a place where the self lives, like the house of the self. The house of the self is where you live. And when you self abandon, it's when you move away from the house of the self. So, what is the house of the self? And this is really fascinating, right? It's not a singular thing. Like if you look at a birth chart, there's a whole lot going on there. There's all 12 signs, there's all these planets, there's asteroids, there's points, there's all kinds of invitations there. Some things in the chart sometimes represent other people and things with other people, and sometimes they represent us. Even what's there is holographic in that way. But it shows that like we are also the I in I is also we. Like we each of us is part of more than ourselves. So it's very complex thinking about the house of ourselves. We also have a sense of younger selves, present time self, future self, a kind of soul self that came here, take it or leave it, whatever your cosmology is, that came here to like have a contract like with life and learn certain things, experience certain things, grow certain ways, evolve certain ways. And our soul is taking us places so that we can have these experiences of growth. There's also, to me, a spirit that we have, which is like the light on in the house. Like these are things that we could sit down and really go through together in my core space where you really feel this, right? Right now I'm talking fast, but because we're not in a core space. But this spirit is like this light on that is taking you places. So there's many selves, right? Is what I'm getting to. There's many selves. There's also the sense of getting information from guidance, getting information from support that is helping you see where you're going, help you make some decisions. Okay. So to talk about the house of the self that you could abandon, I mean, is already really complex because we have competing desires and we have competing goals. We have competing information. Like sometimes it's not really clear which part of ourselves we might be self abandoning in any given decision. So, one of the things that I wanted to really teach you in Emergence Astrology Year One is to teach you how to know. I want to teach you how to know these things. How do you know which part of yourself is the one that has the information that you most want to trust moving forward? But I also want to teach you how to trust in the experiment of all of that and how to trust in the mess, how to trust in emergence, how to trust in the complicated nature of being led by mystery and navigating in the dark. That's what I'm going to be teaching you is more trust in that process. One of the things that I'm going to be teaching you. Part of how you know that you are at it in this business of being a human, you're at trying is through your choices. It is through our choices that we test ourselves. What do I really want? What am I really going for? Where do I most want to feel safe? Where do I most want um, to protect myself? Our choices reveal so much because y'all know that it's true. You may think you're going to make a choice and then you find yourself making another choice. And you're like, what am I doing? Wait, which one is like the real me? Which one is my soul? Which one is from fear? Which one is from intuition? How do I know the difference? These things are extremely subtle. and subtlety is my trade. So this is what I'm teaching you in Emergence Astrology year 1 is I am teaching you how to be a person who listens to subtleties. And we'll be practicing it through the whole pathway of 3 years because this is something that takes time to develop. It takes a lot of time, especially if for decades of your life you were taught to not pick up on nuances. You were taught to not pick up on subtleties, or you were taught to only read these subtle bits of information and read energy from a place of how do I protect myself? Because that's going to be a different interpretation part of you than other interpretation parts of you, which you might be afraid of in yourself. And so, in this space, I'm going to be helping you to not be afraid of these parts of yourself and to meet parts of yourself that you've probably not met yet. It's going to be that remembering, the remembering. Okay. So it's in the choices that we make that we experience that feeling of, oh, did I self abandon? Oh, did I move from a shame part of me? And we can feel shame after the fact because we like wish that we'd done it different. And you know, that feeling of being kind of attacked by shame at all sides. Shame is always a return. It's going to take us back to the past. It's not bringing us into the future. It's not emergence. Shame is not emergence. So let's get back to the first house. The first house is such an important part of you because it's how you are entering the field. If you're watching in YouTube, you can see that I'm using my hand to indicate entering. We're entering, you're interfacing with reality, right? Like we get information vertically. This is something we're going to be practicing and learning together. We get information vertically from above and below. Feels so good to be in that vertical column. However, we are moving through time and space horizontally, where we're interfacing with other human beings, we're interfacing with the collective, we're interfacing with things that are out of our control, and we're staying with ourselves as we go. At the heart of everything I'm going to be talking about, this is the first house because the first house is the entering into the world. It's very horizontal this way. It's this very horizontal entering into the field. And how do you do that? What is that energy like? What is motivating that energy? How do you act, basically? To act is very ascendant, first house. And it has a lot to do with pathway because if you think about life as a seafaring journey, as the ancients did, you can think about the front of a boat and every choice you make is like turning the front of the boat in a different kind of direction. And you know, with boats, we know with boats, even if we're not in boats a lot, we sense this is true about boats, that if you even turn the boat a little bit in one direction, the overall destination is going to be very different. It's a very different destination every time we we steer differently. So they called the first house the helm because it's the steering of the boat. Ooh, there's a huge lightning. The steering of the boat. It's the steering of the boat. The steering of the boat of your life. How you steer. The way you steer. What's important to you in the business of your steering. And every chart is so different here. Not only is every chart a different rising sign of 12, but it's also a different degree within that sign. And then different charts have different planets or placements that may also be there. And all of this is giving you different information about the path of being you, about the you-ness of your choices, the you-ness, the appropriate you-ness of the way you want to enter the world, the way you want to act. So in this way, the specificity of the chart is revealed. The chart is a picture of vastness, but it's also a picture of specificity at the same time. And the specificity of your ascendant information tells you a whole lot about staying with yourself, how to stay with yourself as you move through the world, how to stay with yourself as you enter the field, as you stay with yourself as you make decisions, how to stay with yourself as you act in life, how to stay with yourself as you steer the boat that is your life. And so you can see how, with the way shame operates, so that we are obedient to the larger authority that says what's good or what's bad. And we learn to look to somebody else to say whether or not we're good or we're bad based on their rules that are outside of us, that aren't intrinsic to us, that aren't inherent to us. How we can find ourselves realizing, like, I am not living my life. I don't even know what this is. That kind of, me age 39, just like, oh my gosh, I am lost to myself. Moon, can you help me? The thesis is yes, the moon will help you. The moon is central to this process. The moon is everything to the new Emergence Astrology year 1. Because if your moon isn't safe here, everything else on the chart can't do what it wants you to do, what it's helping you understand about doing. These parts of you are not empowered. These parts of you are not free. So tending to the moon is the beginning, and it's required because you can't skip this step. In my work, I've never wanted to create a 1, 2, 3 pathway. I've never really wanted to say, you know what you should do first when you come to my world? You should do this. And in the circumstances of the matriarchy is already here and self-abandonment is in the field, the truth is there is something to do first. It's the moon. It's intuition. It's returning to your inner voice. It's learning how to feel. It's learning how to feel again and how to pick up on subtleties and how to bring safety home to yourself. This is why the new year 1 is going to be my foundational lunar teachings that will change your life. This is the thing that has to come first. This is what has to come first. Because when your moon is safe, you will find that you will not be interested in self-abandoning as you steer your boat. Self-abandonment is no longer compelling when your moon is truly held. So in this way, as you navigate your life, you are free to enter the way of the sign of your rising sign. You are living the intelligence of that sign. You are living the dignity of that sign. You are living the beauty of that sign. You are embodying in every move you make into the world the richness of that sign. They're all so exquisite and they all have something to offer the field. So you bring the field, your embodiment of that sign. And of course, any other planets that are there, points that are there, and all the things that they register and they teach us and the points of wisdom that they have. So for me, that's Aries. And it's also South Node energy. The South Node energy of like being really full of that wisdom. Um, it's a wisdom point, as I learned from Super Sensory Shahir, who teaches really beautifully on the South Node and can help you so much if you want to have a reading on South Node in your chart. There's a little plug for Super Sensory Shahir, my dear friend. Um, yeah, so this is just such an intense place to trust yourself, is that first house. Yeah, what shame will do, what's like self-abandonment begins with not trusting yourself. That's the signature is you don't trust yourself to make the decisions. You don't trust yourself to make the choices. You don't trust yourself to be the one holding the edges of yourself. You don't trust yourself, in this case, first house, to be the one at the steering wheel. Like maybe somebody else should do this. Like that is the shame. So you know that you have self-abandonment to the degree that you don't feel sure about the way you're driving the boat. Or if you feel like you should drive your boat, if you should drive your life like somebody else does. If you're looking at somebody else and you're like, I wish I could act into the world the way they do, you're moving away from yourself because there's a way for you that is the intelligent freedom of in you. You know you're in your first house way when you know there's no other way you could do it. This is the way of me. I am the one who chooses my way. I am the one who knows my way. It doesn't mean you know about destinations. It doesn't mean your soul's not taking you to experiences. So fun. Living a soul-led life. Like, where are we going with the mystery? But you know the voice, the energy of like, this is my way, though. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I do know that the path has narrowed to the point where there's no other way that it could be except for this way. And so this is the way that I am moving. There's no other way that this could be. So this is the way that I am moving. It starts to not even feel like a choice anymore the more you get into first house, not self-abandoning, unshaming. The matriarchy is already here. I'm going my way, and my way will be the way that is most in affinity with me and most in affinity with liberation for all. Whew, that's feeling a little complete, but I'm going to sit back here and just listen. Yeah, I will say that as someone who's had a lot of agitation in Aries lately, so a lot of agitation in the first house, that staying with yourself does not mean you don't have dissonance. In fact, it increases your subtle awareness of dissonance. One of the things that I've been teaching for years is that feeling more means feeling more. Come into Emergence Astrology Year 1. I'm going to show you all about this. Welcome. Because what I believed when I began to really get into my healing journey was that eventually I was going to get a place where I didn't have to feel any bad things anymore. I'm laughing because it's so cute. It's a child's view about like what healing means and what being like uh all mature and clear means. No, actually, oh my God. So I realized in this harrowing moment that feeling more means feeling more pleasure, more receiving, more grief, more rage, more dissonance and resonance. All of it just gets turned up. So when you're in dissonance with your first house, it's quite loud. It scratches because You're at your steering wheel and you know something's off. And this is so amazing. You see, like part of feeling more means feeling more that we'll be really, really, really moving through together in year one is that just learning that this discomfort is welcome. This dissonance is welcome because it means my system is giving me information to help me with my way. And I'm a person that's available for this. I am a person that is available to listen to these subtleties because it means so much to me to stay in resonance with myself, to stay in clarity with myself, to stay in attunement with myself, to really, really, really listen. Because that's also what we're doing so much in Emergence Astrology Year One is I'm teaching you how to be a listener first and foremost to yourself and to the moon. That is the foundation for everything else. That's the foundation for wealth. It's the foundation for visibility. It's the foundation for expansiveness. It's the foundation for big, powerful voice in the world. It's the foundation for living in fulfillment and satisfaction with your loved ones. Everything to me it begins with the moon and self listening, learning how to tune in and take some space for that. Action always then beginning from listening. Listening comes first. Through those subtleties of that listening, the path emerges. Sitting in the discomfort of the dissonance, being in the confusion of it, being in the frustration of like, it doesn't feel good to not see the choice. It doesn't feel good to not know what my way is yet. It doesn't feel good. But what I know is that dissonance is here, which means I need to tune in. That is how I don't self abandon. I'm not going to go run around and ask people to tell me what to do. I'm going to tune in and really listen with the support of my guides, with the support of the moon, the support of the cosmos. I am listening. I am listening and I am listening, and I am the one who chooses my path. That is how to identify self abandonment in the first house, is to be a person who is so dedicated to that. Because it does take a lot of spaciousness for yourself. You know, like the first house, nobody else is there. It's the only house where there's really not anybody else there. It's really for you, where you have to really tune in. And it may be the way you hear may be uncomfortable because you don't know how other people are going to take the information. You don't know how people are going to respond to the way you need to move in your path now. You don't know if everybody's going to like it. You don't know if it's going to be celebrated. But you've chosen not to self abandon. You've chosen not to self abandon. This is the commitment. And that is what we are anchoring into so that it's not a question mark for you. It's like, this is the commitment that I've made to being here. And I am listening. I am listening. That is like first house, big stuff, big stuff. Because every decision that we make in the first house is affecting the rest of the chart. Everything is affected by the first house. And that's where we are with ourselves. That's where we are alone. Of course, we're not alone though. That's the thing, is we have so much support. This is my cosmology, of course. Fill in for yourself. But for me, the knowing that the support is available, that the omens are coming, like ask for support and then look at the support that you were given and then take it. Like being a person who listens, tunes in, picks up on all the subtleties, and finds that moment of congruence of knowing this is it. We're moving forward. And when you live like that, Nothing can be a failure. Nothing can be taken away from you because you're doing the ultimate thing. Like you're doing the ultimate thing in this life, which is staying with yourself on the path, feeling good about how you're moving. And it has to come from inside. This is inside and with the cosmos and with the other side, the invisible realms support the mystery realms. Emergence astrology is a very mystery space. Learning to trust is a process and it takes its time. But this is the worth it thing because when you move through the world from a first house that hasn't been self-abandoned, basically everything coheres towards you knowing like you can't fuck it up. You can't fuck it up. You're following the signs and you're listening to yourself. This doesn't mean it's always comfortable though. That's why feeling more means feeling more is so helpful, is because it's often quite uncomfortable to live like this. But it is way less uncomfortable than living by shame. It is way better than living in self abandonment. I've been there. I know. I'm not going back there. Like once this weaves in, you can't go back. You can't go back. There's only one way forward. It's the way of self attunement. The matriarchy is already here. And this then becomes like you, the deeper you go, and I know that many of you listening, like you know what I'm speaking to. It becomes very clear the way others are not those who haven't found this yet, like those who aren't living this yet. There's there's there can be a lot of despair about that. And also we 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 shift the field the more we move into it from that liberated place within us that's inviting everyone in to feel feel the frequency, inviting your communities, inviting your clients, inviting your world to step into this frequency with you that you embody for yourself. Not because you're a missionary forcing it on anybody, that won't work. But the sense about you that you have in you when you hold this is extremely magnetic, and it's a remembering to be in your presence. Yeah, so that's part of why stepping into the field feels so much better, is feeling the ripple effects beyond you. It just feels really good. And then it moves to your creative life, right? Like first house can see the fifth house. It moves into your creative life. It affects how you parent. It affects how you share with your students. It moves to your ninth house. Like you're calling, the sense of like this is the way the world is, and I want to teach it. I want to talk about it. These How you're shaping yourself in the first house then goes to everything about you, showing up differently depending on how your chart is set up. And we impact one another. I mean, this is something that I like to teach, is that we'd like to believe we don't have impacts, but we just do. We just do. We impact each other. And to ignore this is to not take responsibility for the fact that it's happening. So how would you like that to go? So for me, it's just like, wow, I would like it to be liberating. I would like it to feel inspiring. I would like to be catalyzing. I can fill in the blank with some Aries keywords there too. But um yeah, this first house one, it's the one that affects everything else because it has to do with stepping into our pathway. And that's from the choices as the testing ground, so that you can go out there and be a person of evidence. Another thing that I teach, go out there and get evidence. What? Just go find out, get evidence. And all of that evidence is helping you learn how to be with yourself, to self attune, to stay with yourself on your path. Everything I'm ever putting out there is coming from this place. All right. I'm going to have more words to say about Emergence Astrology year one and the whole new curriculum, the whole new year two. Everything's changing in my world a lot. Thank you, Saturn and Neptune. I'm listening and I am um, moving into where I see I'm going, inviting you into it with me. And yeah, there's right now a lot of time between now and your decision to make this massive step into emergence astrology with me. And I will let you know more and more over the weeks to come what that might mean for you as a decision. In the meantime, I'm hoping you're going to love this series and let it help you to feel into the potency of unshaming each of these houses and identifying where self-abandonment might happen in these houses so that you can get your eyes on that, which is the beginning of repair. Thank you so, so very much, Moon to Moon. If you've never left a rating or review, would love it if you would do it now. I just recently got 4 new reviews. It was the most exciting thing ever. Thank y'all. So if you haven't ever left a rating or review, please do that now before you head off into the rest of your life. Just even a handful of words is so, so, so supportive to helping people trust, like, why should they take their time? Why should they take their time and listen to this? Um, they could go listen to all kinds of other wonderful podcasts. So, what is it about Moon to Moon that you're enjoying? Please share that. I appreciate it so, so very much. And if you're listening in YouTube, you can do the same here. Subscribe, like, share, appreciate it, leave a comment. It means so much to me. Thank you.